Hi guys, it's Addison. Today I'm going to be showing you guys my record and CD collection because music is kind of what got me into retro fashion and stuff in the first place. I went to a Beatles tribute concert when I was going into 6th grade, and that's what really opened the door for me. So I say the Beatles are my favorite band, but really, there are bands I like more than them, but they were kind of my gateway into classic rock in general. So I wouldn't really listen to anything I do now without them and that experience. So give them some credit there. So now we're going to move on to my record collection. The first item here is Creedence Clearwater Revival's Chronicle. So it's kind of just a greatest hits album. I got this from one of my mom's work friends. She and her husband were moving to Texas and they couldn't take a lot of their stuff because they didn't have room for it. So they gave us a record player, and this was like one of the only albums they had. And he gave it to me and was like, here's this, I used to drive CCR around on a tour bus and all this stuff. And he had stories about his interactions with them, and I just thought it was really cool. I'd never really listened to CCR before, but I recognized Down on the Corner from like the Walgreens commercials, and I Put a Spell on You from Hocus Pocus, so I knew some of these songs already. But it was fun to listen to it, and he said his favorite song was Who'll Stop the Rain. So listening to that, it made me think about him and his stories, and I got secondhand nostalgia from it. But yeah, my first is Creedence Clearwater Revival. And I do remember this one being the cheapest because I couldn't find records for a reasonable price. And I'm very weird about spending my money, and I refuse to buy things that are over $10. I have buyer's remorse immediately after I pay more than $10, $15 for something. So a lot of my CDs are cheaper because I've scrounged around in the corners of the internet and all over other sellers on Amazon or eBay or thrift books or literally anywhere where I can get them for cheaper, because I hate spending my money. And especially as a middle schooler who only got her birthday and Christmas money and a couple Amazon gift cards, I was very stingy with what I bought and very strategic so I could get the most bang for my buck. So, I scrounged around half-price books, and I did not want to buy anything super expensive. And I remember I came across this copy of Madman Across the Water by Elton John. I didn't really listen to this album before I bought it, but it was Elton John, and at the time I didn't have Spotify or anything, so what I did to expand my musical horizons was buy albums and listen to them, or put them on my iPod or my iTunes, or burn the CDs, and that's how I kind of exposed myself to new music, instead of just, hey, I'm gonna get out my phone and search up this cool album somebody told me about. I had to physically go out and buy it, or check it out from the library, or borrow it from somebody in order to hear it. So, yeah, I got this Elton John album, and I didn't really know anything about it, but the record's fine and in perfect condition, but the case opens up all the way. But that's okay, because it also comes with the CD booklet is right on the inside, and that's super cool. Clearly this is one of the third or fourth albums I ever bought, so I hadn't seen that before, and it really wowed me. So this is the cheapest album, and it was only $4, probably because the case is ripped. But if the record plays, who cares what the case looks like? Now I'll move on to the most expensive item in my collection. It's definitely this copy of $1 Billion Babies by Alice Cooper, which I kind of did a whole post on because I was so excited that I found this album. I went eBay searching for this for days, trying to find a copy that came with the $1 billion bill that didn't cost upwards of $100. The cheapest one I was able to find was on auction for $13, and then I looked back in the next few days, and it had sold for $165. So that's a little out of my price range. I found this one, and it was only $8 at the time I placed my bid, and I watched it incessantly for the next week. It was an obsession almost. I remember I had jazz band practice the night that the auction ended, so I was sitting there refreshing my phone, making sure nobody was outbidding me. And I got home and I sat there on my phone and refreshed it for another hour, and I finally won it, and it was only $18, which is really great compared to the hundreds of dollars other people were paying. So it did in fact come fully intact. The only issue with the album is it's falling apart a little on the sides. but the record plays perfectly, and all the inserts are on the inside of the gatefold. So these weren't punched out or anything. They're all there like they would originally be, and the little wallet works. And it even came with a $1 billion bill, which is super cool. It has the Alice Cooper band on it and everything. It even smells like an old book, which is an added little bonus. And so I was thinking about it, and I was like learning about first editions of records and stuff, and first releases, and so I looked it up, and I was like, what does a first release of $1 Billion Babies look like? And I found out I actually have one, which is super cool. And so I got a first release of this album that was already really expensive for $18, and you really can't beat that. So this is probably the most expensive album in my collection. I don't really have any other first releases. I might have a Sgt. Pepper's one, but I don't think so. And then while I was on my little Alice Cooper kick and super excited about my $1 Billion Babies, I went to a record store in Auburn and found this copy of Killer by Alice Cooper. And so I thought the album was really weird, like, why does it open like this? Why is it the same picture twice? You know? And then I realized it's like a little cardboard cutout. And so I opened it. Well, it just fell off. It's a 1972 calendar. And so I looked it up, and I do in fact have a first edition of Killer too. And then I got a Christmas present from one of my friends, and he got me Alice Cooper Goes to Hell, and this is also a first edition. So I have 3 first edition Alice Cooper records that I just kind of stumbled across. And I thought that's really cool. So together, those 3 are probably the most expensive in my collection. And clearly the most interesting, because I've probably just spent 5 minutes talking about them. So next up, I have my earliest release in my collection. And this one, it's in a frame, because it also has a fancy, funky story. I got this record, the Beatles' Hey Jude EP, from my grandparents in Florida. They sent this up and their copy of Abbey Road, which are like originals from... It's not an original because it has Her Majesty listed, and one way you can tell if Abbey Road, you have a first pressing of it, is Her Majesty won't be listed because Paul McCartney tagged that song on the end of the album right before it was released, but the records had already been printed and the labels and everything, so like the song was on there, but it wasn't listed on the track listing. So that's how you can tell. It's not a first pressing, but still it's from like my grandparents when they first bought that album back when it came out. So that's super cool to me. And I have this Hey Jude EP, which is like an album I don't have on CD because, I mean, it's kind of hard to find and it's not one of their normal albums. But this is my first released, and I have it put in a frame because it would just be painful for me to play it because I'd be so afraid of breaking it or scratching it or something. And it does have sentimental value to it. So I have it in a frame to display and not listen to because I can find all those songs on my CDs or other albums or Spotify even. So I just want to preserve this one a little bit. Alrighty, so next up I have the most recent release in my collection, and that's the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 soundtrack. This one is like deluxe edition, so it comes with all of the Awesome Mix Volume 2, and then it has like the actual soundtrack, like backtrack to the movie. My friend picked that up for me at a Cracker Barrel in Tennessee, so it has a it's the record that I got farthest away from home other than the records I got from Florida. And I think it's funny because the most recent release and the oldest release both came from out of state, and I did not get them for myself. So that's a little fun fact, I guess. If you don't have a collection of CDs or records, or even own a CD or a record, like, I totally recommend it. Owning my music is a lot more gratifying for me because I've always bought, I mean, part of it is because I have bought it since I was old enough to understand and appreciate it. But the other thing too is like it's painful for me to pay for Spotify every month because I could buy a CD with that every month and I could expand my collection. Like, don't get me wrong, I love music on demand because I'm kind of a music snob and I hate the radio because I can never pick what I'm listening to. And part of the good thing about like premium music services is I can pick what I want to listen to. and I can sort everything out and save everything I like. But it's a lot more gratifying to own it, because once I stop paying for Spotify, I'm not going to have that forever. Like, it goes away and I don't own it. But with CDs and records, I can own that forever, and I can sit here and hold them up and show them to you and listen to them whenever I want, really. So I highly recommend collecting music, because there's just something like nostalgic about even putting in like a CD, because it's something that we don't really do anymore. Like, print is, yeah, whatever. You can say print is dead and that stuff's going out of business, but I mean, records, you can buy them brand new in the store and they charge crazy amounts of money for those because it's coming back. And plus, every little item in your collection has a story anyway, and music is just pretty cool. So I really recommend buying CDs and albums to anybody who has a CD player or a record player or any interest in music whatsoever. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. If you haven't already, you should check out my blog and follow all my socials, because I do a lot of I talk a lot about music, because that's like my favorite thing in the whole wide world. So I do some album reviews and I talk about artists and such. And yeah, if you haven't, you should totally check it out already. And if you haven't, I don't know how you got here. So anyway, that's all for tonight. Thank you guys for watching.